If you need parking validation, I can hand that to you now. Yes. Commissioner Hitterdale? Here. Commissioner Rush? Commissioner Marashi?
Here.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
Here.
Chair Christie?
Here.
Commissioner Tardif?
Here.
Commissioner Rivera?
Here.
Commissioner Nguyen?
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you so much. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Hitterdale?
Please join me in pledging allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, at this time, we will present a certificate of recognition to a former commissioner, Janelle Hardy. Janelle? We go way back. We were 10 when we knew each other, right? And we're only 21 now, right? But Janelle and I have been friends for many, many years, neighborhood leaders, and especially in the area where she served as with Henninger Park, preserving those beautiful homes and that neighborhood at Lynn Square. She is a historic preservationist. Anything you want to know about the city or the east side of the city, Janelle knows everything about it. And so we are honoring her with the certificate from the City of Santa Ana. It says the City of Santa Ana Historic Resource Commission Certificate of Appreciation to Janelle A. Hardy. Whereas the Historic Resource Commission is an advisory body of the City Council of the City of Santa Ana, whose function includes advising on policy and regulations regarding protection, reuse, and rehabilitation of historical properties, recommending programs for the protection, retention, and the use of historic resources, and encouraging public understanding and involvement in historic and architectural heritage. Whereas Janelle A. Hardy has been recognized by the city as an outstanding contributor to Santa Ana's historic preservation since 1998, and as a pioneer in historic preservation 2014. Whereas Janelle A. Hardy served on the Historic Resource Review Committee, which documented endangered buildings over 50 years old that later became the official city historic register. Whereas Janelle A. Hardy led the Henninger Park Architectural Review Committee and worked to develop the now adopted Henninger Park Architectural Guidelines. Whereas you haven't done anything, have you?
Well, I got recruited as soon as I moved into the neighborhood. They said, come to work with us. I said, okay.
And whereas Janelle A. Hardy has been instrumental in encouraging the preservation of historic resources throughout the city and responsible for the listing of numerous projects on the historic register during her term as commissioner from 2017 to 2019. Whereas the Historic Resource Commission desires gratitude for Janelle's commitment to the city as a historic resource commissioner. Now therefore I, Alberta Christie, as chairperson of the Historic Resources Commission, along with the other members of the commission and planning staff, thank Janelle A. Hardy for her tireless efforts in improving the city of Santa Ana. The date of this day, October 3rd, 2019.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to say anything?
I just want to thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And keep up the good work for preserving the City of Santa Ana's historic resources. And also continue to acknowledge the important work of historic preservation. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to request that the commission come down for a photo.
Absolutely. Everybody, please. Don't go away. Oh, you can see Bernie. You can shake his hand. You can shake his hand. You can shake his hand. We don't want to let. Right, that's it.
Angle here so you get away from this. You guys want to bring it maybe a little bit? That's a little better. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Now, moving right along, we're going to go with public comments. Okay, does a member of the public have any public comments on non-agendized agenda items? You may fill out the request to speak form with the secretary, and you will have 3 minutes to speak unless an extension of time is granted by the chair. And I think we have, I don't know if my mic is, can you guys hear me? Okay, Phil Chen.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, Phil
Mr.
Chin.
Chair?
Well,
Mr. Chair.
chair, chair and commission members, whatever.
Just kidding,
29.
Phil,
Give me a bad time.
has not started yet.
Live at 2900 North Flower Street. Last time I was in this chambers, I want to stand up here and talked about Commissioner Merici and Rush came in front of the Planning Commission the last meeting and talked about the historical buildings on the First American site. And I was very proud that these commissioners had stepped up to the very seldom that we see commissioners in front of the Planning Commission sticking up for preservation, and they did. And I really appreciate that. And I think that there's a lot of good old timers on here, Phil and a few others around here that have been here a long time, Mike, that knows what preservation means to Santa Ana, and they're stepping forward. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? A non-agendized item? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to the consent calendar. Okay, and what we're going to do is that I'm going to take each one separately, okay? Number A is the minutes from the special meeting held on July 11th. Is there
Move approval.
moved by Commissioner Schaefer?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Marashi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And abstaining?
Mike Tardif, because I wasn't present at the meeting. Although I did watch it on TV, and you all did a great job.
And Commissioner
Abstain, I'll abstain too.
Rivera, right?
Correct.
Okay, Commissioner Rivera. Okay, so motion passed 5-2 with Commissioner, am I right? Lisa, am I right? 5 in favor, 2 abstain. Right. I got my numbers right. I always forget to count me. Okay, and 2 abstention. Thank you. Let's go. Excuse absences. We're going to skip that until later because we may not have to do this because Commissioner Rush is stuck in traffic. Okay, we'll go back to that. Okay, and then this time we'll have a motion for agreements on historical property preservation agreement number 2019-02 Mills Act for the property located at 2420 North Valencia Street. North, it's recommended action. Is there a motion?
That sounded like you just made one, but I'll repeat that. I'd like to move that we move approval for the historic property preservation agreement number 2019-02 Mills Act for the property located at 2420 North Valencia Street, and also recommend that we. I guess that's it. That's all we need to do, right?
That's all we need.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, is there a second? I moved by Commissioner Schaefer. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Nguyen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. With the record, please indicate that Commissioner Rush has now joined us. Welcome. Okay. And before we go on, I'd like to welcome our new commissioners. One is returning, Commissioner Tariff. Welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back. Chair Alberta Christie.
And Commissioner Felix Rivera. Rivera. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And then we have a special guest in the auditorium, Julian Reynoso, who is taking a journalism class, and he shows us from at Santa Ana College, and he chose us to do a paper on us. So welcome. Let's give him a hand. Okay. And with the Mills Act agreement with Stephen Paul Wareham and Nadine Louise Wareham, are they in the audience? If not, well, congratulations with the Mills Act. Congratulations. We clap. All right. Now we would move into our business calendar. And the first item on the agenda, one is ad hoc committee's nominations for the 2019 Historic Preservation Award winners. Staff will now do a presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This year we received 4 nominations for our Historic Preservation Awards program, 3 of which were eligible. The nominations included the newly constructed Pacific Electric Park, the program People's History of Orange County, and the Spurgeon Building. I'd like to provide just a brief description of each of the nominations. The Pacific Electric Park was nominated for the category of Historic Infill Design. The park was recently completed in January 2018, and it's an infill development that was completed in partnership with the City of Santa Ana, the Pacific Park Neighborhood, formerly Eastside, the SAHN Alliance, and RJM Design Group. The park was completed in a historic context, and it was completed as a historic context as the railroad theme reflects the historically significant Pacific Electric Railway Company, or the Red Car Trolleys as a lot of folks know them. The park even incorporates a small section of the original Pacific Electric Wood Railroad tie. The next nomination was for People's History of Orange County. They were nominated for the Award of Merit. This is a program developed by the Heritage Museum of Orange County that immerses students in the history of their community. The program aims to engage students to connect to the community history through interactions with guest speakers, personal experiences, exhibitions, and field trips. The students who participate in this program walk away with knowledge of their history, empowerment, and a sense of purpose to be active citizens in their community. And finally, the Spurgeon Building received a nomination for all categories for a series of extensive interior renovations which pay homage to the City of St. Anna's history and the building's rich past. The owners paid attention to the detail and respected the building's history when moving forward with the renovations. Some of the interior improvements can be seen in the period-appropriate lighting, marble-like flooring, the oyster shell wall covering, and the dedication plaque to W.H. Spurgeon. On September 10th, the ad hoc committee, which consisted of Commissioner Hitterdale, Commissioner Schaefer, and then a member of the community, met to discuss the nominations. After deliberating, they recommended the nominations receive awards. Tonight, staff is asking that the commission approve the ad hoc committee's nominations for the Historic Preservation Awards. Staff would like to mention that we do have nominees here present today for each one of the awards or representatives. Our staff is also working with the city manager's office to have a recognition at the city council meeting sometime in December, most likely the first meeting in December. And as soon as we do, we'll be notifying the award nominees and hopefully present them with the plaque with the little bronze plate on it. To accept the certificates tonight, we have Celica with the Pacific Park neighborhood and some of folks from adjoining residences, or neighborhoods, excuse me. Kevin Cabrera, the Executive Director of Heritage Museum of Orange County. And then we have Carly and Carla, who are representatives of the owners of the Spurgeon Building. Thank you.
Pedro,
Yes, ma'am.
I see you for a second. Could you come around? Who's this? So these are the ones that are, okay, those, the three.
No problem.
Nothing about this.
Those representatives.
All right, thank you. Does any commissioner have comments or questions to staff? No?
I have a question.
Okay. Commissioner Rush?
My question is, what category would each of these, I mean, you mentioned the Spurgeon Building was eligible in,
Yeah.
I think, all categories, and the others were only one, is that right?
That's correct. The only one that, actually each one of the nominations, except for the Spurgeon Building, received the award they were nominated for. The Spurgeon Building was nominated for all of the categories, but it's being nominated, or it's recommended that they receive an award for restoration and an award for merit.
Good. Okay.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners? If not, do I have a motion?
I make the motion that we approve all three award nominees.
It's moved by Commissioner Marashi. Having a hard time with my M's today. And is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Rush. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries 8-0. Okay. Now, we will present the awardees with their certificate of recognition, and I would like all the commissioners to join me down on the floor.
Madam Chair.
Al State Fullerton on the historic, or what was it, your plan?
My master's project on African American politics, civil rights, cultural identity. Yeah.
The whole thing, ever since then, and then, as executive director for the Heritage Museum of Orange County, he has taken that from a whisper to a big site, you know, Southern Point, you know, being here in Santa Ana with everything that's going on. So we want to congratulate you and the Heritage Museum for the outstanding job you've done.
You guys can come and take a picture. There you go. Thank you.
Want to say a few words?
The only thing I wanted to say is, you know, we do a lot of work with students from the elementary level up to the college level, and I think it's very important that all students really get grounded in their community history. So that was the main reason why we developed this program, is because we're immersing the students to understand their culture, their history, their heritage, and to be proud of it, and to go out and share that knowledge with everyone else that they meet, families, students, teachers, and things of that nature. So we're just really proud that we get to work with thousands of students on a yearly basis. So, thank you very much.
Well, our next, for his 2019 for Historic Infill Design Park Pacific Neighborhood Association, SAHC Alliance, and RJM Design Group. Are they here? Are they in the house? Somebody better be. There's a lot of alphabets in here. Wow, look at all the neighborhood leaders here. The neighborhood's here. The neighborhood's here. Hi. Hi. Congratulations, each and every one of you. I know that was a lot of hard work that you've done, and we really appreciate those efforts. So we'd like to present you with the certificate of recognition and for the award. Okay? And you want to take that? Everybody get around? Can we move in a little more? Okay.
Make sure we get you in there. Thank you.
One more. Would someone like to say? Irma, you're not going to say Janelle? You want to say?
Well, Celica started it because she lived from Celica lives in East Side and was very aware of that land being proposed for
Development.
Development, low-income housing. It's a recession. We have so many empty spaces. She calls Jose Rea from Madison. She's East Side. Calls Jose Rea from Madison, who's the president of the association, who calls Susana Canet, who lives in Wilshire Square, my neighbor, and I'm president of the Wilshire Square Association. And Edgar is working, lives in Wilshire Square, is pastor at Henninger. So you have the four neighborhoods come together and try to find a use, and we needed parks desperately. So that was 9 years of collaboration, of funding, finding funds, up to $3 million combined, with many meetings with Gerardo Muet. We have to totally support him. And the University, UCI Master's Program of Urban Planning, Victor Becerra, there were 7 initial people, and it was called the Pacific Electric Park Collaborative. Out of that grew a friendship, an alliance, hence we're the Santa Ana Healthy Neighborhood Alliance, and we worked together on it for many moons, 9 years, and we could not be prouder. We wanted it to fit the neighborhood, to fit East Side in the Craftsman style, to represent the history, the Pacific Electric Park. So when we drive, I still get chilled. I still enjoyed all of the process. So thank you, everybody, and we want to do more projects eventually. It's fun.
Can't keep good people down, right? You just keep on going. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And congratulations. And then next for restoration and award of merit, representing the Spurgeon Building, Scott Oslin, I hope that, and Jeff Smith.
So those are the owners of the building who unfortunately could not be here tonight, but we do have representatives on their behalf, Carly and Carla, who will be coming up in just a moment.
Hi. Hi. How are you? Thank you so much. Okay. On behalf of the Historic Resource Commission, we'd like to present the certificate for restoration and award of merit for the Spurgeon Building. Congratulations, and thank you so much for keeping that building historical. Okay?
Thank you. And I just want to welcome everybody to come by the Spurgeon Building and take a little tour if you'd like. They've done a fabulous job. And start on the second floor and go up to the fourth and see the transition of history through the building. So you're welcome to stop by anytime and take a look. And we're pleased to be able to also invite the fire authority, the young men who are becoming firemen. They come and train in that building because it has such a unique design. So that's a special thing that we get to provide to the city of Santa Ana. So we're very, very proud of it. And thank you so much for the award. We really appreciate that.
You're not setting fire to the park.
I knew somebody was going to say that. Thank you so much.
Thank you
and
again.
Congratulations.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you once again. Congratulations. Moving right along is agenda item number 2, cancel of the regular meeting scheduled for January 2nd and call for a special meeting on January 23rd. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Rush,
I will second that.
second by Commissioner Tarek. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Okay. Now, that concludes the business calendar. We will now move to the work study portion. Please note that no action will be taken on this item, okay? And for the work study session, we will be discussing various historic-related issues pertaining to the HRC power and duties, the process for forwarding HRC concerns to the City Council, historic application fees, historically sensitive neighborhood, protection of historic structures, and preservation of trees. Staff will now do a presentation. Oh, there you go.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. The Commission may recall that at the July 11th HRC meeting, staff introduced a process for communication between the Commission and the City Council that would involve the preparation of a memo for City Council's consideration. The idea was to hold a separate workshop to allow Commission discussions regarding numerous concerns related to historic preservation and historic structures. Unfortunately, due to scheduling concerns, we couldn't have that meeting in the month of September. but we're hopeful to have that conversation tonight. And what we'll be doing is presenting this presentation in a format that allows staff to introduce the concept and the concern and provide a brief overview, allow the commission to have some discussions regarding that concern and issues, and then allow the commission to make recommendations to the city council. The items that we'll be discussing today are listed above: commission powers and duties, the historic application fees, historically sensitive neighborhoods, historic resources protection and enforcement, and preservation of historic trees. Our legal counsel, Lisa Stark, will be speaking regarding the first discussion item tonight, the powers and duties.
Good evening. The powers and duties of the Historic Resources Commission are set forth in the Santa Ana Municipal Code, and that's in section 2-374. The first power and duty is consider all matters that may be referred to it by the city council or the city manager, and shall render its recommendations, counsel, and advice in regards thereto. B is carry out those duties enumerated in chapter 30 of the code regarding places of historical and architectural significance. C is to advise and make recommendations to the city council on applications for properties to be included in financial incentive programs participated in by the city for the preservation of historic resources. D is advise and make recommendations to the Planning Commission, City Council, and other city boards and commissions regarding historical properties and projects. E is recommend to the City Council policies and regulations regarding the protection, reuse, and rehabilitation of historical property. F is recommend programs for the protection, retention, and use of historic resources, including utilizing federal, state, local, and/or private funding sources such as Mills Act contracts and the State Historic Building Code. G is to recommend to the City Council programs that confer recognition upon the owners of designated historic resources. And lastly, to encourage public understanding and involvement in historic and architectural heritage. Santa Ana Municipal Code Section 2-371 states that commission members on the HRC should possess an expertise and experience in the disciplines of architecture, history, architectural history, planning, or other historic preservation-related disciplines, such as urban planning, to the extent that such professionals are available in the community. The relationship with the council for the HRC is that you act in an advisory position or role. Advisory means that the commission makes recommendations, but the city council always has the final say. It's the city council that makes policy. The Historic Resource Commission powers and duties are only with respect to historic properties. Historic property is defined in Santa Ana Municipal Code Section 30-1.5. It states, historic property shall include a building, structure, object, or site designated as having historical significance and listed on the federal, state, or local register of historical properties, as well as those contributing properties located in a historic district. And lastly, your bylaws also govern your duties and regulate your meeting conduct. And under the bylaws, the chair presides at all your meetings and is responsible for seeing that agenda items are considered in an efficient and thorough manner. And that's a brief overview for you.
Having heard the powers and duties as presented by our legal counsel, we wanted to take the opportunity during this part of the workshop study to allow the commission to discuss whether they wanted to make any sort of recommendations to the city council for their consideration, specific to the powers and duties as outlined in the chapters that were just read.
Okay. Any commissioner hearing the presentation on our powers and duties have any items for discussion and so that we can take up and be as our role as advisory to the city council and take those matters to the city council for final decision. Is there anyone on the commission going with this? Any discussion?
I have a comment,
Okay.
Chair Christie.
Chair Tarr?
Under definitions, historic property, also in the municipal code, there's a, in that same section, 30-1.5, there's a definition of a local historic district, which means a collection or group of historic properties within a defined area. That's a definition in the municipal code also. Thank you, Chair. Christie, that is my comment.
Yeah, thank you, we've got that. And anyone else on the commission? Commissioner Rush?
You're just looking for general comments at this point, is that correct?
At this point, are we looking for comments or suggestions?
I think what we're wanting to do is to have an open discussion regarding the current, basically a review of the current duties and powers, but also having a discussion on what the commission sees that it wants to potentially be involved in or make some recommendation to change to the existing structure of the commission and how to make recommendation to the city council. That's really the point of the discussion, and any recommendation you provide, I think as a body you come to an agreement, we will then embody that into a document in writing, and then with your approval we'll forward it to the city council.
So in other words, what other duties that you would like to see us be involved in?
Well,
if we can.
yeah, we've had a number of discussions here at various commission meetings where we've had applicants come to us and we have, politely asked, would you be willing to, as an example, recognize the architect or the history of the building by placing a plaque in the lobby or on the front of the building, as the case may be, depending upon what would be appropriate. I can't recall an incident where we've had an applicant refuse to do that, but of course it was spelled out by staff and our legal counsel that we don't have the authority to even ask somebody to do that, which I find a little bit ridiculous. And so I think we would all like to see some sort of verbiage change with the code that would address that. That we would be able, as a part of our approval. I mean, we have the authority to put something to recognize it as a historic landmark or contributive or make various designations. We have that authority. I think commensurate with that, if we see that it's fitting that a building be so nominated and placed on the register, that we would have the authority to ask the applicant to do that. I don't think that's a stretch by any means of outside of the boundaries of what we're asked to do. So that's one issue. I suspect that staff may have some suggestions of where there have been issues that have come up on a recurring basis that are issues where the commissioners would like to have the authority to do certain things, and we're not empowered by the municipal code to do that. And so those are two comments I would make. Additionally, we've had a bit of debate in the last number of months. I'll use the example of the First American Title Building, and some of you know about the controversy surrounding that building, and we asked about it repeatedly, and we were told nothing was going on. Of course, we found out later, much to the contrary, that was not true. However, my point is that Candida Neal, who's no longer here, repeatedly made the comment that, well, it's not designated historic, and quote unquote, you have no purview over it. Well, I think it's ridiculous in the first place when she knows better that a building that is eligible is something we ought to have purview over. So I would like to see verbiage in the municipal code that would address that. We should have purview. I mean, most of the buildings and structures that we have placed on the historic register do not lie in a historic district. So there's only two designated, well, outside of the downtown, there's only two designated historic districts in town, and that's Henninger Park and French Park. That's it. Well, most of the buildings that we've placed on the register are not in those districts or in the downtown. Yes, there's plenty that are within the downtown, but how preposterous it is to say that we shouldn't have purview over the First American site when it's surrounded on all four sides by three historic districts, and you've got a building built in 1931. It's insulting to the commission. So that verbiage, in my view, ought to be changed. That's my suggestion, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Barashi?
I want to echo what Commissioner Rush just said. There's not a lot of cities in Orange County that have the rich historical resources that we have, and I think it's important for us to protect those. And so to not be able, for the city to say, that property is not historic, therefore it's not your purview. That's exactly what they said about the First American Title Building. So that's why we were not consulted. The Orange County Historical Preservation Society was consulted, and other groups were consulted, but your own Historical Resource Commission was not consulted. I think that's a shame. And so what
As a point of order, no, Preserve Orange County was not consulted.
Well,
we went to them after
okay.
the fact.
But they listened to you guys.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So what I'd like to see, and maybe this will give some creed to what Commissioner Rush was saying, I would love to see any property that's 50 years, 60 years, 75 years, or anything like that they're going to do anything to, it automatically comes in front of the Historical Resource Commission.
Like what they have in Whittier.
Exactly like what they have in Whittier. And just have us have a say at it. The second thing is, again, I think it's important because we have such a rich historical resource, that a Historical Resource Commissioner be appointed to the Planning Commission. You have a Planning Commissioner on the Resource Commission, but I really think you want it going the other way. And that's what I would like to see changed or added. That's it. Thank you.
I'm writing, hold on. Okay. Commissioner Schaefer?
I think another issue as that we've heard from a staff member who's no longer here, that neighborhoods, just because they have old houses in them, aren't a historic district. Again, we only have a couple of those in town, but they're beautiful neighborhoods like Floral Park that's not yet a historic district. And in fact, I have a home for sale there, and somebody this past week called the city. I talked to Pedro about this, and went to somebody at the planning counter, and they said, can I tear this house down? That house is completely eligible to go on the historic registry. I've been advertising it as such, and they were told yes by the city. So I would like to see a lot more care given to our historically sensitive neighborhoods, I'll call them, which include a lot: Wilshire Square, Washington Square, East Side, Park Santiago, Fisher Park, West Floral Park. All of those neighborhoods need an extra layer of protection. When somebody comes to the planning counter, I can drive any of you around and point out some really heinous remodels that have been allowed to happen. And those one by one erode the fabric of these historically sensitive neighborhoods. So I think we should have some ability to comment on those situations, notwithstanding the whole 2525 Main debacle that we were basically had our hands slapped for trying to make a recommendation, exactly what this says, to the city council that would be not in favor of that project. So I would like to see us not be silenced on issues that we think are important to the city. Hopefully the city staff appreciates the beauty of all the historic buildings and the fabric, the richness that this 150-year-old city has. I go to New York and other places and I see beautiful buildings where they've preserved a facade, but there's a completely new structure there. But like with the First American, that they have caused something to stay, at least, a shadow of that. And so when you walk the streets, you feel that sense of history.
Just for point of clarification, when you said heightened level of review,
I'm sorry, could you repeat
when
that?
you said heightened level of review or extra level of protection, what do you see would be something that could help facilitate that?
I think there's got to be a way in this day and age of computers that something would pop up on a screen when somebody gives an address, when they walk up to the counter and they say, can I tear this house or building down? That they see, hey, this house is more than 50 years old.
What I mean is that, are you recommending that it gets also presented in front of the commission, or the heightened level of review?
Well, what you had, may I
Yes.
comment? What you had when Hallie Sobolewski was here, and wouldn't be difficult to recreate that, was basically the neighborhoods enumerated by Commissioner Schaefer. If somebody comes in to pull a permit for changing the windows or making an addition or whatever, it's flagged that those neighborhoods are historically sensitive. And so they're then asked to speak with, in those days, Hallie, who would chat with them and sort of counsel them as to what their best options would be. And like many things in the planning department, there's gray areas. So while they may be able to pull a permit to put in vinyl windows, oftentimes she was able to convince them, well, you bought in this neighborhood because you like its historic fabric and flavor, right? Yes. Well, you want to maintain that, don't you? Yeah. Well, why don't you consider having those windows reconditioned? There's companies that do that. If they absolutely are falling apart, there's companies that can remake them as they were original. You keep your original fabric and flavor of the house, etc. So what we're envisioning is that those neighborhoods would be flagged as historically sensitive, and folks would be directed to somebody in the planning staff who would give them some direction. And oftentimes, Hallie was able to talk people out of things, or if they were going to do it, she was able to get them to do it in a historically sensitive manner. So I realize that's a nuanced process. You can't put all of that in a codified language necessarily, but we did it before, we can do it again. And we got away from that during the Great Recession because of financial woes, but the neighborhoods pay the price, because once these changes are made, we live with that mess for the next 100 years. And it's just not prudent. I mean, we need to really embrace what we have in this city, or one house at a time, it'll just become a mishmash. And pretty soon, there's nothing special about Santa Ana. We will have nothing but a Heinz 57 of all these vinyl windows and aluminum windows and you name it, that will not benefit the historic fabric of our neighborhoods. So, does that help
If
clarify?
I may ask a follow-up question. So later on in the presentation, Pedro will go over some of the Secretary of Interior's guidelines and guidance on that. But just to go back to your example of what you mentioned, vinyl windows. So is it the concern that it's the material, or if the material is duplicated in the same design manner as the old window, then it's the design? So is it the material or is it the design? So just
It's
to give you an
both.
example.
It's both.
It's both. So even if the material is molded into the same mold-in and same design, the concern is that vinyl is the concern? So for example, let me So like wood fence, you know, today's the materials, there's a lot of flexibility. There's also a lot of changes to help make material be more sustainable, or they're more durable, last over time, lower maintenance. Vinyl fence, for example, many fence looks vinyl, but many fence are vinyl but made to look like wood, and they replicate the wood look and the wood design. So is the concern the design itself? So let's take a window, changing out a window. The frame could be of aluminum or vinyl, but they're molded and they're designed to look like the original window. Would that be the same concern? That's what I'm trying to get at, because you know there are flexibility of material today that can very well either duplicate or replicate the look and feel of the old architectural design, which is really the visual element of that. And I do agree that there's some aspect to historical building that sometimes may also have a material, you know, significant. So that's why I want to get clarity, so that way when we do bring back some ideas, that they reflect your concerns.
If I am understanding is that what I'm hearing you say, Men, is that through an evolution process and more, is that yes, you can have a historic place, home, and that with the new technology that we have today, the material may be vinyl, but it can look like, what do you call that, diamond-shaped glass? Is that what you're talking about? That would be
For the frame, right.
Is that what you're saying? That if the house had the what kind of windows are that? Let's say that
Leaded
it's
windows?
leaded
Yes.
glass
Yeah.
windows.
Yes.
Okay, and let's just say that due to new technology and new innovation and so forth, it may not be leaded, but it looks like or gives the appearance of a leaded window that would fit that style during
Correct.
the past
That
years.
is a question. That is the question. So I want to get clarity so that when we do craft a response back, we're reflecting what the commission is requesting or recommending. So I think that's the point of clarity. It's important because
did you kind of understand what are your feelings with the new innovations that are coming out now? You know, things that may look antique, but are not antique, but they have the appearance of an antique. Is that acceptable? Are we?
The problem is that almost always we get the lowest common denominator. That's what we seem to wind up with. We don't wind up with the best option. We wind up, you know, I mean, you just most often get, you get Home Depot crap. You know, you get, why? Because you get folks who take the easy way out. So, I mean, if I had it my way would be, no, you got to replace it with what was there, wood. So rebuild a wood window. There's lots of people that do that. You can buy new wood windows. You can get them dual paned, all the bells and whistles, but it's wood. And you know, so one by one, again, these houses, as they change out doors and windows to stuff their, you know, steel doors and aluminum windows, well, pretty soon it doesn't look like what it did when it was built in 1926. So, but there are companies that make dual pane windows. You can get them tinted, and you know, you can even get them 3-pane thick if you want. So that's all available. But I don't know, Phil, you may have another thought.
So the examples I've seen are where, say, an older home that had wood siding on it, had, you know, nice proportionate windows, and somebody comes in, they strip all the wood siding off, they shrink the windows down to be standard Home Depot size. They might be dual pane, they think they're upgrading, but they're not. And there's now no fenestration, no trim on the house at all. They put a metal door on the front of it. It looks cheap. and it ruins the fabric of the neighborhood. It lowers
The
value of
Taj
homes.
Mahal's a perfect example.
So I've seen countless examples of this happen. And we need to not allow that when people come to the counter and they want to do that, especially when a house is 50-plus years old. And we need to pay attention to where that house is. Maybe there's a neighborhood that is not so sensitive and people don't care. And it's common that that's happening. But when I drive around nice neighborhoods in Santa Ana and I see this happening over and over with the vinyl windows and that sort of thing, it really just is cheapening the neighborhood one house at a time. And it's getting to a tipping point. So I think we need to be very careful about that. I do agree that, I think there are some very high-end, quality, fake things that would fool you and I. But most people, Commissioner Rush is right, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the lowest common denominator where people are going cheap. They're all, if you want a roof or windows or whatever, you're trying to get the best price you can. Most people don't have the luxury of going high-end.
I have a comment, Chair.
Commissioner Teller?
Do we really need to reinvent the wheel here? We have a sister city, City of Orange, that has a historic preservation design standard for their locally defined historic district. Is it possible for the city of Santa Ana to define our own historic districts, or do we do that already?
That's part of the discussion today as well.
Later on.
Short answer, yes. We do have standards in our citywide design guidelines that provide consistent standards as the Secretary of Interior standards for preservation, rehab work for our designated structures and structures in historic districts, just like the City of Orange.
Okay. All right. What would you like for us, Commission, to make recommendations to the City Council just on what we covered as far as our powers and duties? Okay? Move on to that, Aaron. What would you like to come on?
We've been writing down, so at some point, if you don't have any more, we can recap for you what was discussed.
Okay, so,
Are there any other issues that you would like to discuss? If you think this is already adequate, then we can recap some of the discussion.
Are you good?
Well,
Everyone?
there was a discussion, maybe you mentioned at the last meeting in July that something about a memo that we could send to the city council on our recommendations. Are we going to depend on staff to put that together?
We will help draft that, and we will bring it back for your review. So we won't just send it off, we'll send it back to confirm this is what we heard.
Are we satisfied with that?
Yeah. It's going to come out, and we will look at it. We can make comments and changes and take a vote on it to go to the commission.
Commissioner Rush.
Commissioner Rush?
One other item I want to address, and that is we need some clarification with regard to the process of putting stuff on our agenda. That seems to be very nebulous, and I have asked before, and it seems to be somewhere between a prayer list and a Ouija board. So that needs clarification.
We have one now? We have one now?
It's in the bylaws.
Yeah.
The bylaws talk about how to put things on the agenda.
We have one now?
But I think the bylaws say a commissioner can request something to go on an agenda at the next meeting. And we have...
If you vote to have it on the next meeting, yes.
Okay, well, I believe we've requested that in the past, and then we've had items on the agenda.
I've in the past requested certain items be on the agenda. Never hear another word.
It says here, Chair presides at meetings and is responsible for seeing that agenda items are considered in an efficient and thorough manner. So I guess we can bring it up to...
Items that are on the current agenda. We're talking about putting things for the future to
Future
discuss.
on the agenda. And then Commissioner Rush, you do email me let's make it clear, on items that, you know, if you want to talk, I forward them to our executive director in Trans saying, this is what has been suggested, and I believe he has either responded back to you, or it is included, you know, in our discussion, you know, it's on there.
Okay, then my question is the process that a commissioner addresses an email to the chair and says, I would like to have X placed on our next agenda, and then you forward that to the planning manager, planning director, or what? That's all, it's as simple as that.
Section 12 says, matters before the commission. Any three members may vote to take up any matter for preliminary review that is not otherwise before the commission. In this event, the matter will be scheduled for review at the next regularly scheduled meeting. A majority vote is required for the commission to pursue the issue beyond a preliminary.
So as I understand that, the only way I then could bring an item, I have to bring it up at a previous meeting. Three of us have to vote on it.
Right.
Do the rest of you not find that to be cumbersome?
So, yeah, I know the city council meeting and many boards that I sit on all have an agenda item that says new business towards the end of the agenda. Is there a reason we don't have that option?
We can put that as an option, but basically it's the same thing. It would give you an opportunity to say we would like to discuss this matter at a future meeting, and then that would then be voted on. So it's a very, very similar concept. We can add that as an item to the agenda under new business, and at that point, you know, the commission can discuss a future item that we would like to bring back. The way that it's been done informally is that between the meeting, there is a request to the chair to agendize something. It doesn't conform to this process. So the items, when it comes up, then can be put into a discussion agenda, and by the vote of the commission, it can come back for a formal discussion.
May I respond?
Yes, Commissioner Rush?
Well, when you consider that technically we're only supposed to meet 4 times a year, that's a cumbersome process. I mean, if we were to adhere to that, to the letter of what's written out in the municipal code, that's a really cumbersome process and does not allow for, I mean, as things happen in our city, why that means theoretically we'd have to bring something up. It could be 6 months between the time that something you ask at one of these meetings for something to be agendized. I mean, it could be 3-4 months or more.
We can certainly explore, if this is an issue, we can certainly explore options to agendize items.
Well, let me offer a suggestion.
Right now,
Why?
I just want to, it's not that we're not trying to be responsive. Right now, this is the bylaw. That's what it says. If you want to change it, please give us some recommendation and desire, and we will look at options that can potentially do that.
Well, if I could offer a suggestion, since we operate so much by email, what if a commissioner wants to add something to the agenda to address the chair, and she would send that out to the commissioners and staff, and as long as we have 3 people want to vote on it or say yes, then bada bing, it's added to the next agenda.
That would be a violation of the Brown Act. So if you have an agenda item that you want on a council, on an agenda, you could send it to the secretary. She could send it to all of you, but you can't connect with each other.
Well, okay, all right. That's a fine point.
We'll look at some options.
That'd be fine to send it to the
So now we have, how many do we have? 8?
We have a vacancy, so
we need 5 is the majority now. Just to clarify, you said 3.
Just like when she sends a meeting notice, she says, let us know if you're going to make it, because she wants to know we have a quorum. It can be the same kind of thing. Yes, I'd like to see that on the agenda. No, I don't.
So presently 3 people can say yes, and you're saying now it's got to be 5?
It said a majority.
and the
3
majority is
people would
fine.
agree, and then you take a vote, and the majority has to vote to put it on a future agenda. That's what number 12 says.
You're running up against your bylaws.
Well,
Well,
Yeah.
well, I think they're really two questions that people are asking. One is, what is the procedure for getting something on the agenda? And then secondly, some of the commissioners, Commissioner Rush and so on, feel that, as they understand the procedure, it's too cumbersome. So, what can I say? I think probably we do understand what the current procedure is now, based on this discussion. So, I guess it would be, how do we then proceed if Commissioner Rush is making a suggestion or changing the procedure? Is that what we're doing now?
Commissioner Hitterdale, if I may, I was part of the Historic Commission and attended these meetings regularly. I do recall, Commissioner Rush, you asking for procedural clarification on addition to agenda items. That resulted in a modification to our bylaws in 2017 that essentially cover the language that our city attorney here is covering. However, the purpose of this discussion this evening is to potentially expand that bylaw allowance, and we are open, as Min is stating, to potentially modifying that. So these suggestions through email, I believe Min is saying that we'd like to go back and consider them and come back with potentially an amendment to those bylaws that would favor the entire commission.
Okay. Commissioner Schaefer?
I have one other comment that Commissioner Rush brought up inadvertently, I think, is that we only meet 4 times a year. When I first came on this commission, we met almost every month. And so if there was a time-sensitive issue at the city, we wouldn't be waiting. Like, our next meeting isn't until the end of January. So we're talking all of October, November, December, January, really 4 months. So if we ask for something tonight to go on that agenda, that ship has sailed potentially.
Yeah.
So I would like to suggest that, we look at maybe meeting every other month, something, go from 4 to 6 meetings so that we do have the opportunity to review things in a more timely fashion. I know we're going to get to the fees, but when the fees went up, the number of meetings went down because nobody was applying. So if the fees become reasonable, I think you're going to see a flood of people coming back wanting to be on the registry.
Mm-hmm. And we had to call special meetings after special meeting, as you know, Bernie. That's what we had on there. So if I'm looking at this, then you're going to come back with some kind of recommendation of how to address process for putting on the agenda, possibly expanding our meeting times to the recommendation to the city council, and historic sensitive properties is what I have here.
Historic district,
sensitive district. We're also going to be looking at also as far as the materials, right? Is that what we're looking at as far as, replacing windows in a historic home, the materials? Is everybody on board with the materials? Come up with something?
I believe the material discussion, when we get to the Secretary of Interior Standards, that'll come to light.
Okay, but I'm just going over my notes of what you have just said on this, and when we have a historic building, that the person that have purchased that put a historic plaque that's on there to identify, that this is a historic building, to showcase it off there. Address, we should have preview, over areas, that are outside, that are surrounded home, that they have purview. Is that the word? Purview over those particular areas. Did I miss anything, anybody? I was writing down as fast as I could.
You want an HRC commissioner to sit on the planning?
On the planning, right.
I have one other thought, and that is, I often am driving around these neighborhoods, and I see people doing work illegally, I'm assuming, because they're changing things on historic structures. In the past, when Holly was on staff, I would just email or call Holly, and she would be all over it. I'm not sure we have a clear process today how to do that. I mean, I can let Pedro know, but is that like, am I going outside the rules if I'm calling him or emailing him and saying, hey, they're doing work on this home on Westwood, which I'm gonna email him tomorrow about one where they took the wood siding off, they stuccoed it, it does not have wood windows anymore, and it's a 1890 something house.
You know, it's absolutely appropriate that you email staff and our code enforcement division as well, where you see construction that is non-permitted. That is reportable, and we will respond to that. Of course, with historical lens to a property, we obviously will have our historical staff also be working with code enforcement. That's the same procedure we follow now. So yes, it's appropriate to do that.
Okay. Is this it for this particular section for discussion? Okay. Our favorite. Historic application fees.
To continue, one of the ongoing concerns that we've heard from the commission has been regarding the cost of historic application fees. It's been a subject of discussion for numerous meetings now. And so I'd like to provide kind of just a brief history of kind of where or how we got to where we're at now, including some of those temporary fee waivers and no cost for applications. So in 2009, the City Council adopted a resolution that provided a comprehensive update to the city's development processing fees. This resulted in fees that were based on 100% cost recovery of the actual cost and time, materials, and overhead. And this is something that we've also discussed with the Commission as well. In 2014, the City Council adopted a resolution that temporarily reduced the fees for Mills Act applications by 50% and waived the $5,000 fee for nominations of properties to the register. The proposed fee waiver was in effect for 1 year with an option for the City Council to renew for an additional 2 years. In 2015, the Council adopted another resolution authorizing the extension of the previously approved waiver and reduction of fees for 2 additional years. The waivers and fees were set to expire August 2017. And in 2017, the Council did not consider an extension, and therefore the fee reductions and waiver expired, and that's when the Commission saw those fees go back up to 100% cost recovery. And as Commissioner Schaefer noted, the applications weren't as much. So the current fees for the fiscal year 2019-2020 can be seen on the screen, and they're both approximately $3,500 for the historic designation fees and for the Mills Act fees. And so as part of the ongoing conversations that we'd like the Commission to consider during the discussion is we in previous meetings have talked about maybe ways where we can not necessarily work with the fees, but work with maybe our Santa Ana Historic Library to kind of provide help for applications filling out their applications, and maybe kind of reduce some of that time that it takes to process these applications. But what specifically we're asking for the Commission is what, in your mind, what's an appropriate cost? We want you to have a conversation about what you're specifically wanting to ask of the Council for consideration regarding the applications fee. So we've heard that these costs are the most expensive in Orange County, and we've provided kind of numbers, and the Commission's provided numbers too of other cities that are also doing applications, and their fees are significantly less. But those cities are also being subsidized. They're subsidizing the application. So we'd like to hear from the Commission too as part of the discussion as to kind of what you feel is appropriate cost-wise and how the Council should kind of work policy-wise to kind of achieve what the Commission's goal is.
Commissioners, comments?
So what we're basically asking is that we want to get it right. We don't want to come up with some numbers and then come back and still feel that it's too high or it's out of the range. We want to know from the Commission perspective, what is an appropriate amount for this type? And then we can look into what we would need to do to be able to get there, so that we can make sure that we understand your concerns and get the right information back out to the city council.
Commissioners? Schaefer.
I just had one.
When?
Thank you, Chair. I just had one question. I asked last meeting back in July how the city keeps data on the existing homes that have already gone through the process. Can you answer that question again? How are we registering? Does the city just keep a log? What goes into that report? That if I wanted to pull a report of all the historic homes right now in the city, what would that report look like?
If I could maybe just clarify if I got your question right. Are you just asking like if someone from the community wanted to look up homes that are on our register? We do have them on a list. They're not. It's not a comprehensive kind of system for you to bring up specifically what makes them historic, but we do have a comprehensive list of all the structures that are on a register currently.
So I could look up, the differences between 2015, 2016, all the way up to current year?
The information isn't broken down in when the year was, when the structure was listed. It does, when we list them, we enumerate them at one number, sequentially. And so what it does is from whenever the first structure that was placed on register to the most current, it provides the address, designation, and to this point, that's about it. So,
does the city plan to eventually improve the way we keep track of data on these homes?
If I may, Commissioner, we did make some substantial changes to the way we categorize and classify our historic properties. We have taken the next step in the inventory process to place these homes on a GIS database that were also cross-labeled by requests of this commission on neighborhood, landmark categorization versus key or contributive. And then that was one other step we took. We also have individual check marks and check boxes in our computer system per Commissioner Schaefer's comment to identify for those folks working the counter for those properties that are specifically on our historic register, so that our counter staff is alerted to their significance, as well as the templates themselves are available by PDF to any member of the public at our counter as well.
Okay, so but the staff at least has a number of how many we're doing each year since last 10 years. Could we be provided with that number, with those numbers? Let's just say back since the year 2000. Okay, because I think I bring up data because I think the first thing we need to do is be able to identify what is wrong, and match it toward the fees that we've been charging for the last couple of years. I think a lot of people in the city are affected by these high fees, and I think a lot of those people tend to be minority homeowners. And I want to be able to, I think that data should also include, ethnicity of homeowners that are actually registering. I would be curious just to see what those numbers look like in the city.
are you suggesting like what parts of the city they're actually registering the homes?
Let's just say I own a home on 111 Main.
Mhm.
I think, if I'm the homeowner, it should say at least what my ethnicity is, what year I bought it for, how much I paid, what year it became, what year I registered it, just a little bit more of a collection of each home.
Commissioner, when we can list the applicant's name.
Yeah, I think that's probably better than saying their race in this day
Yeah,
and age.
so we can list the applicant's name, but
And that's
in terms of
public record.
ethnicity, that's not relevant to the
Might be
process of the
illegal for us to
application,
do that.
But we can certainly provide the applicant's, the
I
name
would
of
just
the
be
applicant.
curious to see what type of applicants we're getting registering homes here in Santa Ana.
Okay, yes. for
Again, I would
input.
have a problem with that.
Yeah,
I really would have a problem if you asked me, because immediately, okay, I would think, number one, white, okay? I'm an American. I have a right to buy a home, okay? And my money is as green as anybody, okay? And for you to ask me my ethnicity, that's going back to the 60s.
Don't worry, Alberta, we won't. We won't do that.
I think we're
Okay.
just
Let's
looking
just
at
move
it.
on.
I think we're looking at it
Yeah,
differently,
fair housing, yeah.
age-wise, with no respect to the chair. Nowadays, a lot of people surrender information, data so easily. it's very normal for collection of data. So I think reports of that information would be important in the sense of seeing which communities in the city are most affected by these high fees. So I'm looking at it more that way. I understand your perspective, and I don't mean to offend you. I understand you grew up in a different time than, probably both of us did. But that's more my perspective and angle.
Commissioner Nguyen, if I may, the main purpose behind the GIS distribution of historic properties was to take a look at trends towards historical homes throughout our city, to try to find if there were any concentrations, for example, of folks that were capitalizing on our program, or if there was indeed an even distribution of applicants throughout portions of our city. And one of the interesting things that we did find were at the period where we were at our peak and we had the fee reduction, we were having folks from different segments of town, from East Side, Henninger Park, north and south of 17th Street, which many folks thought was the majority of applicants. We found that there was a pretty nice distribution of applicants throughout the city, some even on the west side. So that was a tool we used to try to find some additional data. Unfortunately, as Min was stating, we didn't take any other data related to race or ethnicity.
Commissioner Schaefer?
I have two kind of follow-up comments.
Sure. Before we move on, I actually have the information ready for Commissioner Nguyen if he's interested. The program was enacted in 2001, and to date we have 662 historic properties listed in our register, and then 295 of those have Mills Act agreements.
So that's a good total number, but I'd like to, I think his request was to have it broken down per year.
And we can do
maybe
that.
to see the correlation of the fees and how
Correct.
that affected the outcome. I know there's a big correlation there. I think regarding the searchable database for the community to go on and see what properties are on the registry, it'd be really nice if we could add a photo of that building or house. A lot of people are visual versus looking at numbers and things. I don't think that's a hard field to ask or to add in addition to maybe the owner's name. It's a public record of who owns the property, so I think that's a good add. The second thing I wanted to say about what you brought up, and I just went blank.
Just the data collection.
Yeah, the data collection I think is a good thing to do. I'll come back to my other thought.
And if I may,
Commissioner Rush?
go ahead.
Well, with regard to the comment about fees, and we've bannered this about, but Commissioner Nguyen, I can assure you the vast majority of the people that are on the register are what we would consider to be affluent, certainly. Now, I guess there's varying definitions. I was at a session this morning where I understand that if you make under $120,000 a year, you're considered low income in Orange County. Now, I'm sort of at the top end of that range, but I guess I'm low income. I would have never thought that I'd live long enough to say that, but I'm now just poor white trash, okay? So, but
Commissioner Rush, please.
I can tell you that as long as we have these fees at these crazy levels, we're going to get predominantly people who are at the upper end of the income scale applying to be on the historic register. And that's why this whole process to me is so screwed up. We're nowhere close to where we need to be. And if we look at, I have no doubt, our fee structure is the highest in the West, not just in Orange County, not just in Southern California, not just in California, but the highest in the West. Our fees are off the chart. So we want to provide an opportunity for people at various rungs on the income ladder. We need to bring these fees way down, way down. So that's my comment.
I have a question for Pedro. Since the city lowered the fees to the current ones that were displayed, have we gotten any applications? Because we had no action items tonight for that.
Yeah, and actually have that information, not quite to 2001 or 2000, as Commissioner Nguyen was stating, but I mean, as you can imagine, before the fee waivers were in place, we were getting 5 applications. In 2014, we had 89, and this is both Mills Act and listings. 2015, we had 43, 2016, 58, 2017, 129. 2018, 4, and then 2019, 1 application so far.
And since we lowered the fees to the current 7,000, we'll call it, have we gotten any applications?
We received the Mills Act agreement that was before you today.
Just the Mills Act.
Yeah. I think there's a couple Mills Acts.
No additional applications going from 10 to 7. So we know the 7 is still ridiculously high and holding people back. I'd like to propose to staff, when the numbers were around 2,000 total cost for Mills and Historic, we had a good number of applications, which you just demonstrated by those numbers. So I would be comfortable as a commissioner saying that I think a normal homeowner, regardless of ethnicity or how much money they make, would invest $2,000 to have the benefit of the Mills Act, and they would in most cases recover that the first year. So for a lot of people, just like if you're considering putting solar on your house or something like that, you want to know, when do I get, when does this pay back? What's the benefit? If I have to have custom-made windows, can I afford to do that? Because now I'm saving the money. So I would be comfortable if we went back to something around $2,000 that seemed to work at that price point.
Can I ask, what was the fee amount when we had an exceptional number of applications come in?
It was roughly $2,000, $2,059, and then the fee waived $5,000 for the historic register fee. So essentially, the Mills Act agreement was cut in half, and the registration fee was just completely waived. So it was around $2,000 each year.
So the designation, self-designation was no cost, and the Mills Act was $2,500 or $2,000.
Less than 25, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Hitherdale has the council.
Yeah, well, since we do have a 2-step process, I wonder if it might not be better to have a relatively low fee for the historic designation and bulk of the fee for the Mills Act. Because the homeowner's going to get the money back if they apply for the Mills Act. But if they're historically designated, then I think some things we're interested in, like having authority over what could be done, as handled by the historic designation. So
I was thinking of that exactly because of the fact that, once again, when we brought up our discussion on our duties and responsibilities, one of the things that was commented on was that, we have these homes that are out there that are sensitive, but, there might be hesitant that we don't have enough of them on our register because of possibly fees. And I was looking at maybe, $500 or less, between $100 and $500, just to get the historical designation, and then a different for them to be, as far as the Mills Act. That way, it's affordable for everyone throughout the city. Because remember, you got east, you got south, you got west now that are fitting our criteria of homes that were built, 50, or some of them are going 75. Now you're moving out to the other areas of the city, of our city, and we should be able to afford and protect our neighborhoods, not just north of 17th Street. You see what I mean? And that's been my for the whole city, and that has been my mantra ever since I've been on the committee. You got to think about others who want, to have their homes listed and, protect, our neighborhoods. I live across the street from Valley High School. We got this beautiful sports complex. People are coming in, looking at our homes and as starter homes, and we have a lot of nice homes. I sit out on my front porch, well, not my front porch, but my driveway in the afternoon. I see rainbows of ethnicities that are coming back into our neighborhood. Some of them are military families that are getting out, buying into our area. You should see them, you know, if I go out in the morning for my exercise routine, they're picking up. There's, you know, husband and wife team, they're picking up in the parkways, they're picking up trash, other people's dog poo, you know, and everything. They are coming in and invested. And I'm just saying that, you know, they should have the same opportunity to protect that investment. So I was looking at, okay, for you to come in and get more so that we have more homes, if you're going into historically sensitive areas, more homes to make that argument stronger, to protect the integrity of that neighborhood. We should have them the opportunity to a lower fee. And guess what? The property values are going to go up. Am I not right? I've been listening to your speeches, you know, a lot. The property values are going, if you have a historic, is that more tax revenue for the city? You know, yes, it is going to be down. But once again, let's please, I'm begging you, let's give everyone in the city the opportunity to take advantage of having their homes as a historic neighbor, you know, resident. Because just look at it. We got people who, you know, okay, so you say it's all ranch styles, but who lived in that house? You know, who lived? Who were the movers and shakers back in the 40s and 50s and 60s fighting for fair housing, fighting for a better education, fighting for just the quality of life, who lived in that home that has a historical path, okay? You see where I'm coming from, folks? You see? I don't mean to stand on the soapbox or anything, but I'm representing the rest of the city here to say, you know, count us in on this, okay? That's my comments.
Madam Chair, if I could make two suggestions, one of which applies to the fee, so it's directly relevant here. The city is already divided into neighborhoods. Maybe we can have a policy like this based on whether there are already a lot of historic designations in the neighborhood or not, that the fee would be different. If a neighborhood has 0, let's say, maybe the fee is $100. It could be in terms of absolute number, or it could be in terms of percentage. If there are 500 homes and whatever it is, 5%, 10%, could be a sliding scale. I wouldn't get into issues about income or ethnicity or anything. It was based on geography. Maybe administratively it wouldn't work, it'd be too complicated. Something would not be directly relevant here with fees, but wouldn't be so complicated to do, since we do have a list of the structures, and I believe there's a map or something with a geographical distribution. Somebody either administrator could take a look at it, or I don't know, once a year they could come into this commission and say, look, we've got 47 neighborhoods in the city, and these 5 don't have any historic structures. So why don't we have an effort of volunteers or city employees to go out and talk to people and say, well, hey, would you like to list your home as a historic structure, something like that. Have a more proactive effort in areas that need it, not, you know, in areas that don't need it.
Okay, any more discussion? Anyone?
I have a question of staff.
Commissioner Otero.
What is the financial benefit to an applicant for the historic register? The cost is $5,000 to be on our historic register, is that right? No.
The current application fee right now is, for historical designation, is $3,500.
Okay.
And then similarly for the Millsack agreement would be another $3,500.
Okay.
In terms of financial benefits, the financial benefits would become effective at the second stage, which is the Mills Act agreement. And in order to get an application and be considered for Mills Act, you would have to have a property that's been designated.
Designated on the historic register.
And basically, there is a tax reduction for the property tax, for the annual
Okay.
assessment.
Since there's no direct financial benefit to the applicant for a historical designation, is there a benefit to the city for people to be on the historic register and not necessarily be on the Mills Act?
I think there are great benefits to historical structure and to be recognized as historical.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
There are benefits to be designated historical, not necessarily financially in terms of direct financial, but it does create the value that commissioners are talking about here in terms of the structure being historical, may that be event, person, or the architectural style itself. So there's a attention to preservation, to the authenticity of the property or the event. So those will have value that can't be at least monetized, but I think they're quality of life type values.
Are there applicants that want to be on the historic register and not necessarily apply for Mills Act?
We have had that.
Yeah, 2/3 of them.
Two-thirds of them.
Gagro's numbers.
We have had that, absolutely.
Only a third of the people have the Mills Act.
Well, it's a little more than a third. I think it's 44%. But still, the majority do not.
The reason why most of them have done that, Commissioner Tara, is to protect the entire neighborhood. They were looking at the entire neighborhood.
Right. So I don't understand why the fee is so high to be on the historic register.
That's
You know,
what
it
we're
wouldn't-
discussing.
Neither do we.
Neither do we.
You know, if you want,
So,
that's my comment. Thank you.
okay. Commissioner Qureshi?
I understand why it's high, and it's because such a large bulk of work goes into doing the historical registry, all that write-up, all the legwork and everything else. So that's why it is high. But I agree with Alberta, it should be on the order of about, $500 or maybe 1,000 tops to be on the historic registry. I'd like to see it at 500. And then I'd like to see the Mills Act, a sliding scale based upon the property income, the tax bill or whatever of the property. And that's how you would base it, but it would cap out at about $2,000. So you're looking at about $2,500 combined. But it's the cost. And again, I've asked several times, when I get my gas bill, it breaks down all the fees and everything else. I understand it completely. I would love to see the same thing of when we have the dollar amount of what it takes to get on the historic registry. I'd love to see that breakdown. Okay, it took, $50 to do this, $75 to do this. I'd love to see that breakdown. And then I'd like to be involved where we could come up with ideas like working with the Santa Ana Historical Preservation Society to maybe do some of the work, et cetera, find ways around that. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Along those lines, I think we could streamline the whole process as far as the city is concerned, so it doesn't take so much staff time. If there was a template, a list of questions that an applicant would have to fill out and provide that information, they could go to the Santa Ana Library History Room or the First American or somewhere, get some help. They could do all the research so that the city doesn't have to be doing that, and the city could just double check their work like a teacher grading a paper, right? And say, okay, they've got 80% of this done. You have to go back and answer these other 2 questions weren't adequate or something like that, where we involve the homeowner much more, or the commercial building owner much more than we currently do.
I would agree, but the reason why we're asking for the amount, because most likely we'll not get down to this level, even if we try. So that's what we want to know. If these amounts are not achievable through the cuts that we do, we need to look for the ways to get them down there. That's the reason why we asked the question this way, because I know we can't get it down to this level based on what I know of.
Then we
the-
should say free,
I'm sorry?
that we want free?
That's really up to the commission, and we want to have this candid conversation so that we can best reflect your concerns and best reflect what it is that you would like to see for the community.
Would we want to see them down to the previous lower level? Yeah.
Commissioner Rush?
I don't mean to be pedantic, but we've discussed this a number of times. Min, since you've been on staff, we've had these conversations, and I'm just surprised that staff has not been able to come up with any suggestions to say, okay, I mean, I think we all get it that city council is not willing to, this isn't an important enough issue that they're willing to subsidize the cost. Okay, well, I'll bet if we all sat down and we talked about this at a work study session and said, okay, tell us what the 15 or 22 tasks that make up this process are, we could come up with a suggestion as to, okay, this can be done by the homeowner, this could be done by the homeowner, these 5 things, they can hire somebody to do it. I mean, we'd come up with a way to break that cost down so it wouldn't cost $3,500. It would, maybe we could get it down to $1,000 or $1,200, and maybe it involves, again, a contribution of time from the homeowner, or they can elect to hire their own third party, that you would have a list of approved vendors to do that. And as often as we have discussed this subject, here we are again, and we haven't moved 1/4 of an inch from the conversations we've had on this very subject 2 years ago. I'm at a loss to understand what is going on.
The fee is based on the staff time as well as the overhead that the city has. It's based on a study that's done citywide. For the specific application, it's based on the number of hours that city staff spent to prepare the report, based on the time preparation for the meeting, based on the time of creation of the report. The average amount of time that was used on an application is 24 hours. 24 hours, that includes city attorney's review time, Pedro's time for doing all the staff report and review, the secretary's time for sitting here at the Plan Commission, sending out notices, conversing with the commission and the applicant. So in total, it's 24 hours that's spent on the average of about 3 months. So in a period of 3 months, you have about 24 hours spent, but that's a composite time. It's not one person. It's a time of Pedro. It's a time of our city attorney. It's the time of myself in reviewing. It's the time of the manager in reviewing. So all those time gets a composite time into that 24 hours. So it may sound like it's a lot, but 24 hours for all of these different positions to be touching into the staff report, it's a very small percent of the entire 24 hours. And there's a rate that's applied to that. So the rate, I believe, is less than $100, about $95 per hour. That's the city has established as a rate for city staff time. And then there's a 50% overhead cost. So the overhead cost itself in this case, it's $1,800 out of the $3,500. So in looking at it, there is, the reason why I asked this question, and I do appreciate your frustration, Commissioner Rush, but the reason why I asked this question because we don't want to keep finagling the information, reducing a little bit here, a little bit there, and eventually never get to an amount that the commission feels is something that's fair to the community to help promote community preservation. We need to look at other strategy, and I need to know what is the goal of how we get there. Because of that frustration, I see that we've done several attempts at this to reduce the fee, but we have not hit the target. So I want to know what the target is so we can help get there and make the right recommendation to do so.
Okay, can I interject something here? When I was on the city council, I hate to say that, and so forth. And we have things that came up. that the community wanted. And we look at the budget, okay? We looked at the budget and so forth, and we had a city manager that we went to and say, find the money somewhere to help this program going. Once again, we're asking the city manager in the I know it's done. You know, I'm a council member that can say it's done. We have many of them. Okay, so you're looking at what it's costing you. And we're saying, in order to benefit the community, we're gonna need the city to help subsidize your actions, okay? To come in there, and I know that they have money someplace because we always found a way of getting that money in. So it would benefit the city. And we can talk to our city manager, who is, and my discussions is very sensitive toward this preservation of this city. And with the fee schedule like we suggest, anywhere from $100 to $500 just to get it on there, you're looking at volume. And if you want to put it with the Mills Act, then, you know, have it like $1,500 on this to get there. In order to do that, you're gonna have much more income coming in, okay? Your cost, when you have volume, your costs lower, okay? And they're always time. We need to ask the city and the city manager to come in and help us. If it has to be subsidization, I want part of my tax dollar to go in and subsidize something in that budget, have that budget subsidize, you know, your efforts and our efforts to get these properties on the register to protect our historical image and the image of Santa Ana. And I think that that can be done if we frame it in a way that it's not threatening or anything of that nature, but it can be done. And I'm a witness to that, believing, serving on the city council. So I would like to see in our discussion that we also take in, as far as helping us, you're talking about, you know, the fees are not going to be able to go down, that the city come in and say, this is value. We're adding value to our city by putting this and holding on to our historical benefit, which sets us apart from other cities, and have investment coming in that, yeah, I'm going to invest. I want you to invest my tax dollars in a more proactive ways, rather than some of the other ways that they're coming up and doing that I disagree with, and I'm not going to go over that. But anyway, I want to take the bold stand of going in and you know, keeping this structure and asking the city to come in and subsidize. That's my recommendation. And I'm one to volunteer to march up that to City Hall, and with my nice, charming face and attitude, talk to the city manager about that in the next budget. Anybody else? Oh, Commissioner Marashi.
The favorite thing I love about being on this commission is the number of people and homeowners that come to this commission and address us when their home is going to be nominated for the Historic Registry. So I think you're dealing with a different crowd than just this Joe Doe public person. You're really dealing with somebody that's really interested in their home. And being a person that was interested in my own home, I went to the lengths of downloading from the state website the actual DPR forms that the city uses, filled out every single bit, did the property map, took the pictures, did the whole write-up, and presented it. And I see that could be plausible for almost every of these homeowners. I mean, it would certainly weed out the people that are trying to flip a home, and so you want it to be on the historic registry so you can get the best value or something like that. I think that's the kind of caliber of people we're dealing with. Now, you also talk about, you also mentioned, is it a fair number? And we don't know as commissioners. We're just given a number. Now, maybe if we had the complete breakdown, or we saw the whole process and laid out in front of us, at the end of that we may say, you know, okay, that is kind of fair. But right now, we're just given a number. And we've seen different numbers throughout different times and the number of people that have come in front of us. And so I think we need a little more insight. So I think we can rely on the public to do some of this work. The public library has had workshops where they've talked about historic preservation. I don't see any reason you couldn't have a workshop. We actually had the forums there and the people could get started and get answered questions, things like that. And then I know you're never going to get down to that $500 fee from what you have to do. I get that. But I think if you present that to the city council, you say, listen, these are homeowners that are taking the personal responsibility to do some of the work. The city council could look at that differently and say, yes, for that kind of cause, we are willing to subsidize. It's not just a money giveaway. We're actually empowering people in their pride in the neighborhood and things like that.
One final comment is, again, we are the highest in Orange County. The commission did that work. We verified that. All these other cities are doing it. I know you keep coming back to us with this zero-based budget that, you know, your retirement plan, your health benefits, all that stuff has to be paid for out of that particular fee. And honestly, I find that offensive because all of your salaries and benefits are being paid already by the taxpayers of Santa Ana. So this is an extra fee that people are paying on top of that. And I don't think it's fair to say, oh, we have to, you know, get $100 an hour back for the work that we're doing. That would be part of your regular work anyway. So I just think other cities
We don't
do
set
it.
the fees. I just want to say we don't set the fees. The
But
fees
we're
is set through
recommending
the
the-
application process. So
Okay.
what we're trying to do is to help represent some of the concerns so that we can look at ways to help reduce that actual fee of the cost of the city to provide that service. That's what we want to do. And my goal is to understand what level would be felt to be appropriate so that we can help get to that target.
Everybody understand that?
So
Okay.
my understanding is that when we had the most application was when the fee was reduced down significantly to about 2,000 for the Mills Act, and it was waived for the designation. So what I'm hearing, there was one suggestion to look at an equal part of about somewhere in the range of 1,000 to 1,000 each, and then also a second proposal was to look at something between 0 and 500 for designation, and
No, I didn't say 0. I didn't say 0. I said 100.
oh, I'm sorry, 100 to 500 for designation, and about 2,000 for Mills Act.
Commissioner Rush, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Tardif asked about the issue of the historical designation. And yes, it's true, the city per se, nor the homeowner per se, receive any direct, discernible, immediate monetary benefit the moment that they're anointed as being a landmark or key or contributive. But as Phil would attest, there is no question that a homeowner has intrinsic value still in being able to say that their home has been placed on the city's historic register. That has value whether it's Santa Ana or Poughkeepsie, okay? It really does. It certainly has value in a city the size of Santa Ana.
Right.
So if they want to go ahead and apply for Mills Act, great. But to say that there's no value just because they don't receive an immediate, identifiable dollar check in the mail or whatever, I think is untrue. That's like saying there's no value to having a quiet neighborhood and historic trees on your block. I mean, it's hard to put in a finite number on that, but it definitely has value. So.
I agree.
Anyway.
That basically was my point.
All right?
And we agree as well. So.
Okay. May I entertain a 5-minute break to stretch out, go to the restroom, or do whatever you have to do? Okay, I'm going to not adjourn the meeting, to
Recess.
recess the meeting here at, I've got 6:25 for 5 minutes only, okay? All right, meeting recess.
What area of Santa Ana do you live in?
Close to Jefferson and
I don't know where that is.
close to Bristol Walker.
Oh, okay. To answer your question, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Is that an appropriate question to ask? Because I feel like every time I open my mouth for this commission, everybody looks at me weird.
No. That'd be
I'm just saying, you have a
sure.
phone, I'm pretty sure he has a nice haircut. They all probably have all the apps that we have, we surrender our data back. And it can be voluntary, but more so, you can't fix problems if you don't identify the suspect. And I know, for example, my grandparents have lived in Santa Ana since 1961. Guaranteed, they don't have money to cover that cost, and I for sure know that they're not rich. So, I mean, they have a huge history in Santa Ana, their whole life, their whole life. So that's what I'm curious about. But I have some other questions. But we'll see. I'm like coming down with the flu. So, yeah, because we have a baby shower coming up on Sunday. Did I tell you my wife's pregnant?
No. Congratulations.
In November. So yeah.
First?
I've been tired just doing all that.
First?
Yeah, first one.
Huh? Super congratulations.
Yeah. We'll see. Maybe I'll ask for more questions.
Due when? November, you said?
November 19th.
Do you know boy or girl?
We're gonna do it old school. We're gonna wait till the doctor calls.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to like a daddy boot camp thing that she made me go to at Kaiser. There was 27 dads. I was the only dad that didn't have Tinder. At that point, I was like, damn, maybe I should know Tinder.
I know you're curious.
It's getting there now. Yeah. So.
That's great.
But I'm glad you're on this.
Yeah.
You need another voice of reason.
Here you go. Uh-oh. Somebody went beyond the barrier.
Yes, the most recent one. Well, but 4 to 3 on every vote.
How you hanging in there for your first meeting? How are you hanging in there?
Not too bad.
Learning a lot, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
How about you? Welcome back.
Oh, yeah. Glad to be back, Alberta.
All these issues that you had before, now
Coming
formalized.
back again, yeah.
Right, but this time in a more
Yeah, more logical, direct manner. I'm glad to see it.
That's why I suggested at the last meeting, I'm calling a workshop. We're ready to get this done.
Yeah, I saw that.
We're going to have 2 more hours on this. All right. How about let's pause it here, okay, just on the work study discussion, and then have a special meeting to continue on with the work session because staff is tired, I'm tired.
Hey, I'm all for that.
Okay. I got your back, right?
Yep.
But I'll pause this discussion, continue on with the agenda afterwards.
Yeah. I like that.
I do have one person that wants to speak.
Sure.
We do. I don't know if this is good. I saw this one. I don't know if the school district does this stuff. I don't think so. I don't know, to be honest. Yeah, the PD does. This is cool looking. I saw it. Really cool.
That's what Alberta was just saying.
But Dale wants to talk. That's fine. Dale wants to pass down.
Do that.
Okay?
These are important issues, and I don't want people to rush.
Right. You can still take the public comment. Okay, no problem. Okay, guys, okay. Who's buying beer afterwards? Okay. Is everybody back? Are we on, Madam Secretary? Okay. I am reconvening the Historic Resource Commission meeting of October 3rd, 2019 at, I have 6:32 p.m. Okay? Give me a break. Okay. Commissioner Schaefer.
I'd like to make a motion that, because we have a lot of important things to discuss and we've got, I don't want to rush through this, that we adjourn to a special meeting that would be within the next 45 days, scheduled at everybody's mutual time, so that we could continue this discussion of the neighborhoods and the other things that are still on the agenda.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second. If we do the motion and we move it on, do the public have a right to speak on, how do I handle this?
So the public speaker can, depending on which subject they want to talk about,
Just
can either
on the
speak
one-
today.
Just what we discussed, I
Yeah.
just discussed that.
They can speak now, or if they'd like, they can also have the opportunity to speak again, or speak at the future meeting. So make that offer. If that person is here and would like to speak today, I think we should
He wants to
accept.
speak now, so, can you how do we do this?
Why don't you take his comment now before we take the motion?
Okay, before we vote, okay? Okay, let me take his comment. Dale, have it?
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners, for giving me the opportunity to speak. A couple things that I heard that kind of stuck out to me, and that was, it seems like it's a catch-22. You guys have the jurisdiction or the authority to look at historical properties. You don't have the jurisdiction and right to look at historical resources. They already have to be on the historical designation before you can look at them. And that's what I heard coming out of the code. And so it really needs to be changed that you need to look at historical resources. CEQA defines it like that, historical resources that are not on the historical registry or in the city designated codes or whatever. You got to do that first, because I think you mentioned that you'd like to see a map of the historical properties. There is that map, I've looked at it, but really what needs to be looked at also is all these properties that are out there that people can't come forward and put on the registry. You know, I'm one of 269 homes in my neighborhood that were built prior to 1946. There's over 1,000 homes that were built before 1968 in my neighborhood. So all of those are eligible. We have 35 on the registry. And it's not due to income or anything else. It's due to the fact that people have a lot of pride in their homes. They want to fix them up, and they're spending the time and effort to do that. But, you know, and if you apply that same ratio across the city, I think if you had a map of all these homes that are built 50 years ago or greater, that thing would be almost a solid dot. That's what needs to be addressed. Now, Years ago, I went and replaced my water heater. I had to get a permit. I came down to the planning counter to get a permit. I had to go see Holly because my house was built in 1936. You know, and I explained I wanted to move it out of the basement to the garage, and we talked about it and got the permit to do that, but I had to talk to her. 10 years later, someone came into the neighborhood and they built a box 2-story house that looks ugly. Didn't have to go to her because of the cutbacks. There was no control over it. We're living with that box 2-story house now. It looks terrible, but it's in the neighborhood now. When we talked about vinyl stuff, people put up the vinyl fences, and those things crack and break very easily. They're not a good thing. There are.
Gail?
Yeah,
I
just
think that was-
just one more thing, please.
Go ahead.
When we talked about fees, you said it took about an average of 24 hours to process the application. I rounded it up to say 25 hours. 25 hours of work into $7,000 is $280 an hour.
No.
So
Per application.
Per application. So even if it's $3,500, that's still $140 an hour that we're paying to have these applications processed. $140 an hour, and I don't know how much the city is paying people, but it seems kind of high. And so I think just based upon that, if we look at just 25 hours of work going into it, it shouldn't be $3,500. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
I think we have one more. Jeff Dickman. 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Dickman. I'm with the Historic French Park neighborhood. I just want to let you know that I've been chair of our neighborhood's architectural committee for 20 years. Janelle Hardy is here. She has been doing that same for probably years longer. So you have the two kind of resources representing the two architectural committees present tonight. And nobody had approached us about participating or sharing kind of what we do or the issues that we have, and we've been working out issues with the city for decades. And we've had some good progress over the years. We were kibitzing just a few minutes ago, and we were thinking, you know, what would be helpful, what we could offer is maybe a field trip for the commission into both of our neighborhoods. Kind of see what we do, the issues that we and staff, Pedro, we work together, and previous Melanie McCann, the issues we have to kind of deal with to keep the houses going that are already on the city's registry, not just to get them on there, but kind of maintain them. I think it would be useful because we write reviews. We've done hundreds of reviews. We're communicating, I'm going to say every week, maybe every couple of weeks with city staff on this, and have for decades. You see them every 3 or 4 months. We talk with city all the time about a whole bunch of different issues. So I would kind of put that out there. Regarding the information that you have, you meet so infrequently. This is a very involved set of issues. I don't think you have enough before you. When we worked with the city on the Sunshine Ordinance, the city's attorney really did this really nice matrix. They had talked with all sorts of cities about what was working for them and what they didn't. The city council had a lot of material in front of it to consider. And I think they made an informed decision. Forgive me, I don't know that you have enough material before you to talk about these issues. Maybe about the fee stuff, but about how city interacts with the city, with the community, about preservation issues, what it tells people, what it doesn't tell people. Commissioner Rush and I had met with the city a couple of times about that, expressing our deep concerns that we think this process is falling apart. And I noticed it when I'm taking my long walks and was in Washington Square. In just the last few years, 5 or 6 years, I've noticed that about 20 to 30% of the houses now have vinyl windows.
In about 15 or 20 years, you will be the vinyl window city. You won't have wood windows. And that means that neighborhood really, as a neighborhood, is not going to qualify because it has all of these issues working against it. So take vinyl windows, funny siding, trim being disappeared, all of this crazy stuff. In French Park, you'll see the trim. You won't see vinyl windows. And with city staff's help, we keep it in that place. So I was on the HRC a number of years ago. At the time, we said, why can't we get more neighborhoods on the city's registry as neighborhoods? You've only got 2. And you have all these potential resources. I got the feeling that, the city is progressive. It's adopted some of these neat policies, but it sits on their hands because it's time and it's expensive. You're really going to have to dig and push to get them to do other neighborhoods. You should be doing 1 or 2 every couple of years, but we have it's just not happening. If we're not assertive, if you don't jump into this and say, you're a commissioner, if you don't push on them a little bit, we're going to be in the same place 10 years from now. You're going to have a few more houses. People are going to be kind of knowing about what historic preservation is. But it's just going to be, the city is really good at keeping all of the people in the neighborhood separate. I urge you to try to pull everybody together, take the lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now, we wish to, now that we heard from our public, all those in favor of, would you restate the motion?
Lisa, it's to adjourn to a special meeting, date to be determined within the next 45 days?
We should do it sooner. Holidays are too far away.
Yeah.
I'd say 30, in the next 30 days?
Commissioners, may I please ask that
Yes.
we propose a couple of dates because, as you know, it's extremely difficult to work with 8 schedules. Some people have prior commitments, so if we can look at a couple dates and then just take a vote, and that way it's set, and we can just adjourn the meeting to that date. So I can pull up a couple dates. We can, Min, is there a specific date that you know? Okay, so there's October 10th.
October 17th? Does that work? That's 2 weeks from now?
I won't be here, but if that's the best date for you, we can make that work.
How about October 17th, folks?
Or October 24th, will you be back then?
Yes, October 24th.
That's 3 weeks?
That's 3 weeks out. I think that there's a conflict meeting that night.
So,
I think no one.
how about the 17th? Everybody, how about the 17th? Good?
No, we don't need to know it now.
Good?
We would just have someone fill in, but FYI, I won't be at that meeting.
Okay. They'll have somebody fill in.
So we have the 17th, the 24th.
I'm good with both
17th.
dates.
17th. We'll start with the 17th. 17th, when?
17th.
Right, we're there. All right.
Yeah.
17th. Me is okay.
At what time?
4:30?
4:30.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, everybody. 17th, October 17th, 4:30.
Put it on your calendar right now.
2019. It's almost over, guys, Does that make that easy? Sorry you're not going to be here. We'll miss you.
Thank you, Sarah. So you'll adjourn to October 17th at 4:30 p.m.
Right. Okay. I don't want to adjourn the meeting because I have some comments. Okay. Okay. All those in favor of moving the second half of, is that what you're saying?
Sure.
To a special meeting, 4:30, October 17th. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried, boy, I tell you. Okay? All right. All right, moving right along. Okay, now we will have any comments, okay, from our staff?
Just real quickly, thank you for this workshop. I think it really gives us an opportunity to be able to get at the same level at the commission in terms of your concerns and comments. And our goal is to really try to bring back meaningful responses and strategy that can help address some of these concerns. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, moving right along. Commissioners. Commissioner Nguyen?
I just want to make one comment to my fellow commissioners. If each of us, my impression is we seem to be on the same page regarding this fee issue. If each of us can speak to the member that appointed us to this commission, you know, we have an election right around the corner. We should all, in the community at large, should be aware of, you know, where this is as a priority. So that's my only comment to all of you.
Okay. Commissioner Rivera, welcome again.
Thanks. No comment, just happy to be here too.
We're happy to have you. Commissioner Tarr, welcome back again.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back on the Historic Resources Commission. It's very important to the city of Santa Ana, to the residents. Glad to be back.
Commissioner Heathersdale.
I'd like to welcome Commissioner Rivera and welcome Commissioner Tarek back and congratulate and thank Janelle Hardy, former commissioner, for her service, and thank the staff for coming in the long day and making it on. Appreciate the work this time.
Commissioner Rush.
I too would like to welcome Commissioner Rivera and Mike Tardif, Commissioner Tardif, back to our commission. And I want to congratulate the homeowner that we placed on Mills Act on Valencia tonight and on the register. And a thank you to staff for your work on that. I would like to ask for an item to be placed on the agenda, on our next agenda. May I do that now?
Would you like to be on the special agenda, or would you want to make that the regular agenda of January?
Well, I'd rather not wait until January. So how do we handle it?
It's on the special agenda.
So it's on a special agenda. I'd like us to address the issue of the First American development.
That was going to be in the second half of our discussion. If you
It is?
looked at the, yeah. That was
No,
going
the First American project is not within the purview of the HRC. It's going to be, they're going to be having a planning commission workshop or work study session that you can attend.
Well, I would beg to differ. That building is eligible to be added to at least our local register, and so that brings it under our purview. So, again, I would ask that that's something we be able to discuss.
At this point in time, with all due respect, the project is being considered by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has scheduled a workshop, I believe it's October 14th, to discuss the historical nature of the project as well as other aspects. And that will be addressed. At this point in time, it is within the purview of the Planning Commission.
What time is that meeting?
The meeting is starting at 5:30.
On what date?
October 14th.
And that's open to the public, so
Of
anyone
course.
can go, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Okay. So,
I have no further comments.
okay. Commissioner Marashi.
I want to welcome Commissioner Rivera and Commissioner Tardif back and congratulate Janelle on her honor and award. And then I'm extremely excited to announce that we are submitting our historical district application to the state for Floral Park this weekend.
Oh.
So
congratulations.
Really looking
that
forward
needs
to
an
it.
applause for that.
I'll keep everybody posted on how it goes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I'd just like to echo the same comments to the two new commissioners and to Janelle.
Thank you. Okay, we all talked about being part of the City of Santa Ana's 150th anniversary celebration. I put in a request for a booth at the Centennial Park, for Historic Resource Commission to be there, and we got the booth free of charge, okay? we're going to be next to Santa Ana College. We're in the VIP section, guys. Santa Ana College and 7-Eleven, because they're giving out a whole bunch of things and they want. So, guess what I found? Yay! Remember our presentation, you weren't here, but we did an excellent job, right? On the presentation to this city. Remember this? I got it. So I know Commissioner, Vice Chair Schaefer and Commissioner Rush, we worked on this along with the city, and we can't get on the stage, but I would like to meet with you guys to put this on a laptop where we can do the presentation again at our booth. Because I asked, do you need, everybody knows I'm the least technical person on this dais, okay? I have a flip phone, right? No, none of your fancy phones. And I have to ask my grandchildren how to do things on my laptop, okay? That's how novice I am. So, if we can do, this, get it on the laptop, the only thing that we had that was on here was, remember this one on the key locations of historic? We didn't have the neighborhoods, that needed to be added. So if we could meet very soon to put this on and go over it and do the presentation, it's going to be there. We will have a presence, and we need a sign. So somebody volunteer for the sign. And thanks to Miss Janelle Hardy, because we have to do handouts. She sent me over coloring pages, which I'm going to make copies of the United Automotive Building, and I will block off your name, your email address, and Henninger House for the kids to color, take home and color as historic, I'm only going to do 500 and 500, of that, based on my budget. But anybody else want to do a little bit more, let me know, okay? But anyway, I asked Executive Director Nen, do we have anything we can hand out?
So I will be working with our staff to also assist with getting some handout information for you to provide at the booth, and we'll gather that and provide it to you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good, because they said, Julie Castro is doing an excellent job, she and her staff, on putting on this big blowout. This is over at Centennial Park. So I'll tell you the time that we need to be there and everything, and hope that everybody come out, okay? And be there and cheer us on, because we will be there as a presence, because I listened to you and I said, can we have a booth? And so forth. They wanted to charge me for insurance, and I go, but we're city, we're the city, and they waived that fee for us, because we were a city commission. But anyway, but that's what I'm so glad we got our presence there and everything. So we will be at Centennial Park, Sunday, October 28th, and it.
27.
Is it 27? What's
What
with
hours are we supposed to be there?
if you want to help set up, is 12:30. We have to be there 12:30 to 2:30, and then I think the event is from 3 p.m. to 9, right, with the fireworks show. Thank you so much. So please come on out and support us. I got us in, got us in.
Great.
So anyway, all right, and thank you once again, everybody. I hope it was informative. Thank you to our SAC student here. Thank you for being here, and all the rest of you, okay? And I'd like to adjourn this meeting to our next special meeting, which is Thursday, October 17th at 4:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Schaefer.
I'll second.
Who was second? Oh, Commissioner Tara. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. So, when can we get together? I'm pretty flexible.
If I may,